Wait up! Okay. 3, 2, 1, go. Alright, so the game is Rockman 2, the original Japanese version of Mega Man 2. It's identical to the US version, except that it doesn't have difficulty modes. It plays the same as the difficult mode in US version. And also, thanks to Japanese text, we're gonna spend over 40 seconds less watching cutscenes. In the game itself, you jump and shoot. In the beginning of the game, you have 8 robot masters you can fight in any order, and this lemon shooter. Then as you defeat each one, you gain their weapons, and towards the end of the game, you have a pretty good arsenal to choose from. Also in the games, there are some additional items that generally give you movement options. In Mega Man 2, you have item 1, 2, and 3. And while usually the boss order revolves around having weaknesses for bosses, in Mega Man 2 the items actually save so much time during stages that we're gonna start by getting them all 3 at the beginning and fighting those bosses with our default buster. Flashman stage is pretty uneventful, but the boss that's coming up is a bit trickier. Let's see if I can get it right. The boss itself is non-random, so ideally it looks the same every time, but if the fight goes off the rails, it can go off the rails pretty badly. And there we go. Okay, that was bad. Well, I almost still got the 1 cycle anyway. Next up we go to Heatman stage, where we're gonna see the first zip in the run. Zipping is a term that you're gonna hear a lot in old NES games and such. It's a loosely defined term that means going through walls, wrapping around screens, and just generally disrespecting physics and Euclidean geometry. In Mega Man 2, the most common method of zipping is to jam ourselves into a ceiling with item 1 or 3, and then abuse the game's wall eject mechanism to move ourselves forward at over 10 times the walking speed, which also usually gets us past some enemies and obstacles and such. Then after we're done with that in the stage, we'll later get to the disappearing block section, which is actually a bit trickier than it looks like, because if you go past the blocks, you can actually make them spawn faster, and you can trigger that by just jumping on the very front edges of them. So I'm gonna be doing that, which is quite precise. So here we go. Okay, I messed up my positioning there, so I just took it slow, but we're not dead. That doesn't lose too much time. Then the boss itself has a pretty simple pattern. Every time I hit him, he goes invulnerable for either 30, 60 or 90 frames. I'm gonna do some buffer jumps so I can minimize the distance he travels and dodge him from as short of a distance as possible. So despite me knowing the possible timings for that, it's actually still really hard because you have such a little window to react during mid-jump where you're gonna go through with a jump or pull back to dodge him. Then we move on to the Airman stage. If you're familiar with the game, you might be wondering why I didn't do Airman first and use item 2 to skip the disappearing blocks. And the reason is that it's faster to use item 1 to go quickly through the open air section in air, so you don't need to wait around on the cloud platforms. Airman in general is an open air stage, so there are no ceilings where we could conveniently zip or anything, but you're gonna see a lot more of that later in the game. Alright. And the jump on the egg over there in the end is actually a 4-frame window for that. I am jumping at a very specific timing where the birds spawn in a way that those 2 small birds fly horizontally right and remain on screen, preventing further birds from spawning. Here on the second half of the stage, what we're gonna do with the birds is we're gonna shoot the first one, since we'll actually have a weapon equipped here. Then do a quick turnaround on the second one to make it spawn from the left, since the birds spawn from the direction you're facing. Also, when the birds disappear leave the screen, they despawn some other enemies. Notably here, despawning that fan guy saves a good bit of time. Airman shoots tornadoes on screen, then blows them at us. And he has 5 different patterns, of which 3 are good and 2 are bad for our purposes. Okay, this is a bad pattern, so I can't get past those tornadoes to get closer to him. Now from the good second pattern, when I took damage in the middle of the screen, it let me cancel the blowback and start the next pattern from right next to Airman, and once I get to that point it doesn't really matter what he does. Moving on to the Clashman stage. That's right, in Japanese version it's Clashman, not Crashman. And in Clash, we're gonna do our first screen desync. When we zip past the screen boundary to the without scrolling the screen, we're gonna actually move on to the second stage, to the next screen in the stage, but the screen doesn't scroll, and the enemies and the visuals from the previous screen will remain on screen. And we can use that to go through like screen boundaries where you normally couldn't pass. And if our actual position gets past the checkpoint, then after dying you respawn in the checkpoint. So that's what we're gonna do. Also doing a screen wrap here to save a little bit of climbing ladders. Then walk through a couple of screens and switch to heat to use heat sound effect to... No, that's close. To cancel the death fanfare, so we don't need to wait it for it to play. Ah, crap. So the second half of Clashman stage is climbing ladders, and climbing ladders is really slow in this game, so as much as possible we try to instead progress upwards by jumping on item 1s and 3s. Anytime you see me place an item 3 like that mid-screen, there's a 4-pixel window where I can get myself immediately standing on it. After the screen boundary, I can use this little nudge up that you get when you grab the ladder off screen, and screen transits within it. Ah, yeah. Okay, that was bound to happen sooner or later. Ah, what the hell is my menu here? Yeah, well, that's so fun, timeless. And let's see if I can get the double hit here. Okay, that's a quick kill. Then we move on to a Quickman stage. In Quickman stage we do another screen desync. Right before the beam section, we zip past the part where the lights go out and back. Let's go out and turn back on, except that since we're zipping past it, we bypass the trigger so that the stage will remain dark for the rest of the stage. Also, we go one screen further ahead than you're intended, so in the beam section I'm actually required to use the flash stopper to stop the beams, because the combination of the third screen's layout and the second screen's beams is actually impossible to get by, and even the toolsys speedrun needs to do that to get past. This dip setup here is pretty accurate because you don't have any really consistent cues for it. You gotta wing it a bit. That's fine. Then as I wrap around the screen to the left here, I actually go back one screen, which puts the screen synced again, so now we can progress as normal. Doing a little ledge jumps here, some basic movement optimization. Alright, we got that one. So the way those zip setups work is that when you aren't moving yourself, the game doesn't check your ceiling collision. And if you place the item, and items despawn if the center of them is hitting the wall. So if you place an item 1 right past the corner, it won't despawn, and if you yourself are fully under the wall, you will get pushed into it. So that last setup was just otherwise as any other, except that don't have any visual cues for it. Metal Man stage is pretty straightforward. If it goes right, it's pretty easy, but if I mess my initial zip setup, setting it up by feel is pretty accurate because the ceiling is low here and the conveyor keeps pushing you off. But we're fine. Then I'm gonna go for a second zip here, which saves half a second if I get it. Okay, I did. Then Quickman himself. Normally he reacts to you by jumping and shooting at you when you shoot yourself, but what he actually reacts to is pressing B, and his weakness, the quick boomerang, you can shoot with it by holding B, so by doing that I can just keep Metal Man still while killing him. But he also jumps on a timer, which would kick in right before the last hit if I start the fight normally. But by triggering a jump while I'm still moving towards him, I can get him to jump before and keeping in place for enough time that I can kill him. Then moving on to the Woodman stage, where we have the most complex and confusing sequence of zips in the game. If you're familiar with the game, it's not that hard to follow, like there's nothing individually really impressive, but if you don't know, it's gonna look like complete nonsense. If you didn't notice before, when I have the screen desynced, during the screen transitions you actually see the screen where I am actually on, and then after the screen has scrolled, it will revert back to the wrong screen. Before we get to that, I'm gonna use Flash Stopper to bypass the dog mini bosses here. In this screen transition, the ceiling is lower after the transition, so by jumping precisely there, we can do that mini zip, which gives us enough time to bypass all 3 dogs. Otherwise, you would run out of flash right before the 3rd one. So here we go. Right now I'm in the open air section with the bamboo platforms and gorillas and birds. Jumping over the gaps there. And right here, I'm entering the final screen of the stage and suiciding in the boss corridor, which put me past the checkpoint, and let me continue from here. Woodman is also a completely non-random boss. If I don't mess up, the fight will always look the same. Ah. Okay, right there when I ran into him, I was supposed to shoot right before, but missed that. It's alright, it doesn't cost too much time. Then to the Bubbleman stage. Bubbleman has in the beginning and the end of the stage these waterfall backgrounds, which put a lot of background noise on the screen. I don't know what our stream settings look like, but for most runners of the game, the stream quality takes a nosedive right here. So what does it look like? Surprisingly, our stream looks pretty good. Also, since I was distracted by watching what the stream looks like, I actually tried to play from that one. I'm totally messing up my movement here. What? Oh. So we're about to finish up the final Robot Master. After that we move on to the castle stages. At this point the game knows that we have all the weapons available, so it can start requiring them. Right in the first castle stage there are a bunch of walls that you can't get past without using the items. Volume 1 stage itself is a long climb again, and we're gonna go past most of it by doing some screen wraps. So the way those work is that while we're pushing ourselves up with an item 1 or 3 near the edge of the screen and jump on a specific timing, we move to the next screen, but also we get put to the very top edge of it, so that basically lets us bypass the whole screen. Then past that point, whenever you jump, you get moved one tile lower, but also you can initiate a free fall on some of the screens, which we're gonna see after a few screens here. That was close. Okay, so I changed what happened there was I wrapped to the top of the screen, then initiated free fall to drop to the corridor there. Then if I transition too quickly, I would be inside the wall there and would have to take a death to continue. I was actually pretty scared of it because I changed my strat there pretty recently from mashing A 12 times to doing the free fall strat. And I have grabbed the ladder way too early, way too many times. Another difference from moving on to Robot Masters to wild stages is that the bosses are no longer those standard sized robots. Instead they can be like full screen like this dragon here. And also they don't have any invulnerability frames. So we can kill them like this. Normally the dragon shoots fireballs, but the setup from the beginning on the middle platform, then jumping to the low one, manipulates his movement so that he doesn't do that. He would have shot one right after where I killed him, if he was still alive at that point. And Wily 2 starts with a pretty standard zip, except that we're gonna do it while walking on spikes, which makes it look pretty scary. right here we need to do the menuing there, because pausing this game resets your falling speed, and if you don't do that you fall down to the spikes before reaching the ladder. So while we're menuing anyway, we might as well switch to item 2 to conserve our item 1 energy, which is far more useful later on. I think I messed up my timing here. Okay, so I tried to shoot the leaf shields at very specific timings, which lets me kill those drills while they are at a specific spot, still in the walls, so that the random drops don't stay inside the wall, which means I don't lose time to picking them up. Refills are really slow in this game. Each bar of health or energy costs 8 frames, so a large refill is actually 80 frames, which is 1.66 seconds. So you don't want to pick up too many of those. So the next couple of minutes will be pretty uneventful, but after that we get to Wily 4 and Wily 5, which are generally pretty big run killers. Wily 4 is affectionately known as the Purple Hell. It starts with a climb section similar to the one in Clashman. I'm probably gonna fall off the item trees a few times there. Then you go down through a few screens filled with spikes, where you do a lot of jumping on item 1s and running on spikes during iframes. Those aren't too hard, but can be also pretty scary. And the boss in there, which is comprised of 5 turrets that you need to kill individually, and they are only weak to Flash Bomb. The boss room also has 5 breakable walls, which are also only weak to Flash Bombs. So in general there are 10 things to kill, and a full bar of energy for Crash Bomb gives you 7 shots. So pretty much everyone who's played this game casually complains about that. I'm menuing there to extend my jump to the ledge. But if I do the fight correctly there, I'm gonna finish it with 5 bombs, which leaves us with 2, which I need for the quick kill next stage. But that involves doing a 2-frame timing while entering the room to land on a certain platform I want to end up on, and then placing the last Crash Bomb in a 2-frame window, jumping there to avoid the potential drops. I can't react to them in time. Then after Wily 4, we get to the refights, which are a standard thing in all Mega Man games. You fight all the bosses again. And in Mega Man 2 they are more interesting than most, because they're really fast-paced. Bosses generally take a ton of damage from their weaknesses. There are pretty few refill animations. And also the fights are very different from the first time around, because turns out in actually 5 of the fights you use a different weapon than the first time around. And in since all of them are in the same kind of empty room, that also changes some of the fights, which originally had some kind of terrain there. What the hell happened to my item tree? Yeah, so the reason I started talking about those so early is that soon I'm gonna have too much to focus on in the game to be able to talk much. This screen is actually much trickier than it looks like, because placing the item to 1 there is... let's say I've killed way too many runs by placing it too low or too high and missing the jump and dying there. I actually lose a ton of time on it every time. Oh yeah, what I didn't mention before is that... ah, shit. How much... I might have enough energy on this. Okay. Gosh. That's really hard to recover from, so I'm gonna just take a game over here. Some people like to pick up backup one-ups for marathon runs. But I prefer not to. Because most common places where you take a death in the end game are the beginning of Wily 2 and the end of this stage right here. And in both of them you would rather take the game over for the weapon energy refill. If I had spawned there in the middle, in the stage checkpoint, which is the corridor up here, with no item 1 or item 3 energy, it would just be really awkward to get through the rest of the game. Okay, getting the jitters here. But it's fine. I was hoping for a sub 30 marathon time, which I thought was realistic. Still think it would have been. But the estimate is actually 40 minutes. Exactly because this game has a lot of places where small mistakes can cost you a couple of minutes at once, so you don't want to make a very tight estimate for a marathon run of this game. So the initiating the zip with a jump there has a 4-frame window. It's usually not a problem. So now I'm gonna take damage at a pixel perfect spot here, which happens to set up the coming up switch. Okay, that was way too high, and also I messed up twice there. Okay. So the damage transfer bug is really stupid to explain, so I'm not gonna go into it. I was supposed to do a faster version of it, but it depends on how you have taken damage the previous time, so when I failed to dodge the cannon shots, that messed it up. I was supposed to run into the upper turret after clearing the wall. And then the refights that I was talking about before. Okay, so the heat dance is actually maybe something I shouldn't be doing. It's really hard and doesn't really save that much time, but finishing that fight without having the switch side just feels too good to pass up. Gotta go for it. Also, the Woodman fight was slightly different than the first time around because we want to avoid taking damage here. Because the refills take a lot of time. Quickman is still super random. He doesn't even get stuck in the little platforms in the room you fight him in his own stage. Okay, since I'm gonna take a refill here since I'm missing the second crash bomb, so I'm gonna need to do the first stage of the Wily Machine fight with Metal Blades instead. I'm gonna take a bunch of damage there. Wily Machine's vulnerable hitbox is the cockpit. If I shoot that directly with flash bombs, he's just gonna take 4 damage like Quickman, but I'm gonna shoot right below it, which causes the bomb to explode and kills him in one shot with the explosions, since he doesn't have invulnerability frames. Then moving on to the final stage, I was about to have no item 1s for the zip here before I game overed, but then I got the refills and I can do this as usual. An alternate start here is that if you scroll the screen to the very front edge here during the fall, you can just walk forward and the drops here will do nothing to you. And I messed that up too. So I think I forgot to mention it, but those scrolls where I stop right before screen transition, you know, if I go zip past the screen boundary, it's gonna desync the screen, and in all of the cases where I do that, it's really bad. The alien here does 2/3 of my life bar of damage on contact, so you wanna avoid that. Also time coming up really soon. As soon as this boss quest is done. Right now. No. Did I really miss sub 30 by 15 seconds? Oh well, still a really good run. I'm happy with that. Yeah. That was Rockman 2. Thank you.